Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the second in the series of our cybersecurity webinar series. And today's webinar will focus on cybersecurity awareness training as a building block for power sector cybersecurity. So first this morning, I would like to introduce Mr. Mansfield Blackwood. He is our partner country systems advisor for the United States Agency for International Development, or USAID. I'll turn it over to you now.
Thank you and good morning to everybody. So I'm with USAID, Eastern and Southern Caribbean, based in Barbados. And we cover 11 countries in the region. And so on behalf of USAID, I welcome you all to this important webinar on cybersecurity awareness training. This is the second session of the Power Sector Cybersecurity webinar series that USAID has jointly designed with the National Renewable Energy Laboratory, NREL, which is part of a broader effort for increasing energy resilience in Caribbean nations. This level of regional technical support and coordination is at the heart of USAID's Caribbean Energy Initiative, the CEI as we call it. This project, recently launched out of USAID Dominican Republic mission, aims to support the Caribbean nations to advance energy sector reforms, enable economic benefits, and build resilience in the face of natural disasters, extreme weather, and the impacts of market shocks. In particular, given the role that the electricity sector plays in our daily lives, advancing economic growth in the region, and in successful post-disaster recovery approaches, the CEI focuses on helping energy systems across the region to become more resilient. To reach its overarching goal, the CEI works in the following areas: improving utility performance and reach, increasing competitiveness and transparency of energy markets, accelerating private sector investment into modern and renewable power systems, and disseminating best practices for resilience. These days, and more than ever, it is critical that we understand and address the gaps and threats to our systems, whether physical or virtual, cyber as we might call it, all exacerbated by the COVID-19 pandemic. This includes reviewing past attacks to our networks, assessing the potential impacts of cyber vulnerability of our systems, and learning what our options are to adapt and to strengthen our systems to overcome these challenges. It is also very important that we understand how existing governance structures can contribute to advancing cybersecurity efforts. And this is where this USAID NREL partnership and support features become relevant to the region. Next slide, please. The USAID NREL partnerships global technical platforms provide free, state-of-the-art support on common and critical challenges to scaling up advanced energy systems. Next slide. And so, ladies and gentlemen, we're pleased also to indicate that this webinar series is complemented with an extraordinary set of technical tools that are available to overcome these challenges, such as a resilient energy platform. This platform, managed by NREL, provides experts, resources, training materials, and tools to enhance power sector resilience. It allows decision makers to assess power sector vulnerabilities, identify resilient solutions, and make informed decisions to enhance power sector resilience at all scales. I would like to thank you all for joining us today, and we look forward to collaborating in the future to advance our collective goals of building resilience in our energy systems. And now I'll turn over to Dr. Cletus Burton, the Executive Director of CARILEC. Thank you.
Good morning all, and thank you, Mansell. It's a pleasure to be here as part of this collaborative effort. CARILEC is extremely pleased to be partnering with such agencies as NREL and USAID. We deem it a distinct honor to be included in this effort, very critical in these times, as Mansfield has already outlined. Just for purposes of background, CARILEC is the Caribbean Association of Electric Energy Utilities, but we are much more than that, in that our membership also includes over 80 associate members, independent power producers, and affiliate members who operate in the electric energy sector in the region. As everybody will be aware, there are tremendous hazards facing the region, and what CARILEC has sought to do over the recent years, increasingly so, is to adopt a multi-agency response to a multi-hazard environment. Whereas before we had the CDAP program up and running for almost 3 decades, which is the Caribbean Disaster Assistance Program, which operates on the basis of mutual assistance among CARILEC member utilities. We have recently expanded this approach to include a broader multi-agency collaboration. And so now we are partnering with agencies such as CDEMA, as we have in the past, CARTHA, which is the Caribbean Public Health Agency, CANTO, which is the Caribbean Association of National Telecoms Operators, and CAWASA, which is the Caribbean Association of Water and Sewage Authorities, mindful that the hazards we face are not only in the physical realm, that is storms, landslides, floods, volcanic eruptions, as we see now unfolding in St. Vincent, but also in the cyber world, virtual threats are ever present with us. And we are not dealing with threats that are likely to come in the future. Just to be clear, we are dealing with threats that are with us in the present and has already directly impacted on a few CARILEC member utilities. And so this collaboration with NREL and USAID is critically important to the Caribbean electric energy sector in terms of resilience, in terms of continuity of operations, business continuity, and in terms of ensuring the improved quality of lives of the people of this region. And so I would just like to thank again our partners in this effort and to express our commitment to continue to partner with you as we unfold the building blocks for this critical area, and to pledge our support. And we are thankful once again for including us in this undertaking. So I will pass it now over to Britton with thanks, and we look forward to the seminar today.
Thank you so much, Dr. Burton. So now I would like to introduce our primary speaker for this webinar, Tammy Reynolds. Tammy works at the National Renewable Energy Laboratory, and she has 6 years of cybersecurity research in the electric sector. And Tammy is also the technical lead on the Distributed Energy Resources Cybersecurity Framework, or DERCIF. And Tammy conducts cyber governance assessments in the electric utility sector based on DOE's C2M2 and the NIST Cybersecurity Framework. So with that, I'll turn it over to Tammy.
Great, thank you so much, Britton, and thank you so much to Mansfield and Dr. Burton for kicking us off this morning. I really appreciate it, and thank you all for joining us today and the opportunity to share this presentation with you. So here's just a brief summary of what we're going to go over today. We're going to do a quick building block overview, which is the document that was recently released by NREL with the partnership with USAID and CARILEC. Why is cybersecurity awareness training important? Cybersecurity awareness training, the actual building block and the intersection with the other building blocks. Setting up a cybersecurity awareness training program, an all staff training exercise, or different exercises for that matter. How to create a culture within an organization around cybersecurity awareness training. Different metrics, frequency, cost, and measuring successes and failures. Just ideas around that. Data around cybersecurity awareness training, and also resources available. So power sector cybersecurity building blocks. So why are we here this morning? I think it's important to go ahead and get this started off with the reason that we are all here, and we are interested in talking about cybersecurity on a power system for your utility, and the challenges that you face, right? For instance, if there is an attack on your system, you are definitely concerned about deleted data. Theft of sensitive data, reputation, right? Reputation is key to a lot of organizations, and trust. Losing trust of your customers is crucial. And then obviously loss of productivity. If your systems go down, you know, there's much more at stake than for a lot of other organizations, since you're obviously providing electricity. Loss of life and other severity, or, you know, serious issues can arise as a result of a system being down. And then ransomware, right? Obviously, there's just been a lot more increase in these types of attacks, where they can be extremely costly. And then specifically for the utility, right? Safety concerns, you know, safety for your staff and for your customers. Again, interrupted service, and then damage that can possibly be as a result of an attack by destroying physical assets, and then the cost to repair those assets. And the reason this all obviously relates to cybersecurity awareness training is that we're going to go, you know, take a deep dive into, you know, how cybersecurity awareness training can help mitigate these types of events from happening by making your staff and your employees aware of different aspects of cybersecurity. So just a brief overview on the power sector cybersecurity building blocks. So they are clusters of related activities that support a well-rounded cybersecurity program. And so you'll see once I show you the diagram here that we have different categories that are very specific to cybersecurity. We encourage utilities to think about the different areas of cybersecurity, and then we draw from established best practices within the industry and highlight those aspects. And then these also span multiple stakeholders, as well as interconnected and mutually supporting. And then, you know, these building blocks are definitely not the last word. There's a lot of information out there and available. This is just the collective experience of the individuals that actually put this document together. And I believe that James just actually put a link in the chat for everyone. If you'd like more information specific to the building blocks, you can go click on that link and go to that document. So this is what the structure of the building blocks looks like. The overarching concept of governance, obviously. So actually, let me walk you through them. Each rectangle is a building block, which really is a cluster of related activities. Solid blue means that they are internal to the utility, and then the shaded light blue are outside of the utility. The arrows represent major categories of information that pass between the building blocks. Arrows aren't exhaustive. There is information flowing every which way, but the arrows capture those main categories. In the building blocks document that's located in the chat now, the link is in the chat, there's a whole series of other diagrams that zoom in on each individual building block. So today we're going over the cybersecurity awareness training building block. So I just found the couple quotes that I thought were very relevant to today's exercise and webinar. You are an essential ingredient in our ongoing effort to reduce security risk. And really, everyone in the organization needs to be a part of the cybersecurity team for your utility. And then the 5 most efficient cyber defenders are anticipation, education, detection, reaction, and resilience. Do remember, cybersecurity is much more than an IT topic, right? So we need to be making sure that everyone within the organization, like I said, is on the cybersecurity team. So why is cybersecurity awareness training important? Human mistakes, right? They, you know, obviously, if we just had machines running everything, it'd probably go really smooth. But once we start adding the human component in, there is definitely room for mistakes. Phishing attempts. Phishing attempts are one of the #1 offenders when it comes to an attack or a breach, because, you know, a staff member gets an email and clicks on the link. And just to share you a quick story about myself, I don't know how many of you would be willing to admit, but I remember when I started NREL back, you know, it's about 7 years ago. Our organization has a pretty robust cybersecurity awareness training, and we do phishing campaigns. And I received an email, and it was right around Valentine's Day, and it was from a florist saying that they had delivered some flowers for me at the front desk. And I clicked on that link, and fortunately, it was a training exercise, and it wasn't an actual phishing attempt. But I just share that with you because I think that it's really important that, you know, no matter how trained we are, we all have to be careful, and we all have to make sure that we're being diligent about looking at each individual email and making sure that who they're coming from. And I'll go more into that in just a few minutes. USB drives and devices, you know, sharing them amongst staff members, not knowing for sure where they're coming from, finding them in the parking lot and plugging them in. Also insecure Wi-Fi networks, going to a local coffee shop, logging in, not knowing exactly, you know, whether that system might be compromised, or if somebody can then, you know, get into your network if they're using your devices at a local coffee shop or anywhere for that matter. And then security hygiene, password sharing, putting your passwords on a sticky note and putting them under your keyboard. This is a very common place that anyone with malicious intent, which also could be, you know, potentially an insider that is looking and has very specific reasoning behind trying to get into your network. You know, having passwords just sitting on your desk, probably not the best, you know, way to store your passwords. Not only that, but what are your passwords? Are they just the default passwords, or are they something, you know, as simple as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8? You know, suggesting and making sure that passwords are, you know, difficult enough so that and strong enough so that people can't just simply guess them. Online safety and visiting unsafe websites, clicking on a malicious site, and your staff just not knowing, and then human error misconfiguration. So staff are the first and the last line of defense. Sometimes resources, or it saves times and resources and reputation. You know, training will absolutely reduce the amount of time that you're having to deal with cybersecurity, the amount of resources that you have to put towards it, and then also your reputation. So 81% of data breaches are caused by stolen login credentials, which goes back to that password protection piece. The average breach costs an organization $3.8 million. So unless you have an extra $3.8 million laying around, you know, making sure that you have, you know, these measures in place is super important, and having a good training program to have your staff, you know, really aware of how to deal with cybersecurity is super important. And then critical infrastructure depends on informed employees, and so that they can help manage your risk. Okay, so I showed you the building blocks, the diagram a few slides back, and this just is kind of hyper focusing in on the ones that actually touch the cybersecurity awareness training. So the organizational security policy obviously feeds into the cybersecurity awareness training, and then so does workforce development, which is outside the organization, like I had mentioned, and I'll go into both of these. So workforce development, we want to distinguish workforce development from, obviously from the actual training itself. This workforce development really is about making sure that your IT and OT staff are properly trained in cybersecurity, providing, incentives for additional education. For instance, a lot of times, organizations will offer, reimbursement for, classes at the community college, or through different cybersecurity trainings to make sure that their IT and OT staff are up to date on all the latest and greatest in cybersecurity. And then also, partnering with academia, so your local university or community college, building those relationships and start being able to recruit students as they come out of these schools and bring them directly into your organization. Cybersecurity is such a huge, it has such huge growth right now, and the demand for jobs is so high that building these relationships with these institutions is extremely important, so that we can start recruiting these people as they graduate from school and as they come out of school, so that and come directly into the workforce, into your organization. So the intersection with the organizational security policy building block. So the security policy, it captures the executive directives on cybersecurity. It elaborates on these directives and includes specific guidance on implementation. And then, this is a document that is going to have things like a data breach response policy, an internet usage policy, and then also a remote access policy. It's just a collective document to put all those policies in one place, so that the organization is clear about what their security policy really is. Processes and actions. So setting up a cybersecurity awareness training program, I'm going to go over understanding and aligning with the mission and vision of the organization, identifying key stakeholders and assigning roles and responsibilities, and then who needs the training. So understanding and aligning with the mission and vision of the organization. Again, we go back to that building block. What are your cybersecurity policies and procedures? Each organization is obviously different, so making sure that you are clear about, the level of risk that that you feel you've identified through. Also, the risk management building block, knowing what those risks are, and being able to create policies around them and procedures, so that you can then build out this program. You want to be able to evaluate those weak points within, like I said, the risk. You need to know what potentially where your gaps in your cybersecurity posture are. We actually recommend doing assessments. They're a great way to help gain insight into your weak points and help identify those risks and being able to address them. So identifying key stakeholders and assigning roles and responsibilities, it's super important to get management buy-in. And the way that you can do that is by using internal data on attempts to breach your system. So whether that's through packet captures or what have you, but having some data to support the need for a robust cybersecurity program. And then also, you can use examples for external breaches. We're all familiar with the SolarWinds supply chain breach, and if you're not, please check it out. Also, the most recent was the pipeline breach that happened in the US a few weeks ago. So really important, and those definitely support the cause of of creating this type of a program. It's, within the utility and the electric sector, obviously, safety is super important. And so, using the analogy of building security in, just like you would with building safety in, they're one and of the same thing, right? Being able to keep your facility secure does keep it safe. So just keeping that in mind. And then also getting employee buy-in, trying to get your staff on board and explaining the importance of the secure practices and productivity, safety again, and then job protection. So who needs training? Everyone. Anyone who has access to a computer or device that connects to your network. So that means anyone and everyone, right? Even people within the mailroom, if they have a computer that connects to your network, they need to be a part of your cybersecurity team. Obviously, different training is dependent on the different role and responsibility that each staff member has. And then we just recommend to train early and train often. Those who handle sensitive information are obviously, need a special type of training. So those people that deal with data operations, any PII, intellectual property protection, financial information, trade secrets, software licenses, network configurations, non-disclosure agreements, email security and privacy, and then SCADA operations, right? So your OT department as well. And I just want to mention that, really good, if depending on how you have your network set up, good network segmentation, obviously having these roles and responsibilities clearly defined, and not necessarily allowing access to, the people that operate the SCADA don't need to have access to the same data that the financial staff need, and vice versa. So IT and OT staff need, we recommend in-depth training on all of the building blocks. And this is just a list of all those building blocks again. So governance, risk management, organizational security policy, compliance, procurement. This one is huge. At least it has been. Most recently, it's been brought to the attention of the industry that, the supply chain and the risk within the supply chain is super important in making sure that where you're purchasing your equipment, that there's potentially good contractual language in place and those types of things. So procurement is super important. Looking forward to that webinar. Also incident response, which happens to be the next topic of our next webinar. So stay tuned. I'll go ahead and plug that one right now. Incident response, super important. And then technical controls, network architecture and pen testing, just to name a few. So here are just a few of the types of annual training exercises that we recommend. So classes and workshops, you can do, a half day in person, all day in person type class and workshop to bring people up to speed on learning about cybersecurity. Doing a tabletop exercise for incident response. A lot of organizations have found that this is extremely effective. That way, rather than just, assigning these roles and responsibilities to individuals, they are very clear about what, when you do a tabletop exercise, and you're in the heat of the moment trying to, deal with an attack, everybody gets very familiar with their role and what they need to be doing during that time. So highly recommend that and look forward to that webinar next month. Creating a best practice guide, and then also maybe creating mandatory tests. I know that NREL, actually, we have testing that we have to do once a year, and we actually have to take a test at the end where we do the training, and then we take a quiz, and we have to score 80% or higher, or we have to take it again. We have to take it over and over until we achieve that 80%. Social engineering, set up regular phishing campaign, just like I shared that experience with you, setting up a phishing campaign so that you can help make your staff aware of, the different types of attempts that are, constantly being sent to them, but setting this up so that they learn, that clicking on those emails is not a good idea. And then you can provide rewards for proper usage. And then also just being super, open to staff about insider threat awareness, and then also reporting. So, training your staff as to what insider threats might look like, and then, making them feel comfortable and confident in reporting them to upper management. Webinars, creating webinars and having maybe some on operating workstations within the OT environment, understanding legacy equipment, and then also awareness of the CIA triad, which is confidentiality, integrity, and availability. So creating a cybersecurity culture. This could be a part of your annual cybersecurity awareness training, but to do an actual campaign, you can do a marketing campaign throughout the entire organization. You can hang posters, have fun with it, create games, do something. We actually have something in our organization where they put together treasure hunts, and like at the end of the treasure hunt, there's $100 gift card or $100 Visa gift card, or to the local coffee shop or what have you, so that it's an incentive to participate, right? And then also to do well in participating. So crossword puzzles, word searches, or a trivia game. So like I said, mandatory training videos with knowledge tests, just like I had mentioned before, with the individuals needing to score at least 80% or higher. And then having it set up so that management gets notified when those tests have been taken and that they have been passed. And then if they have not, then keeping those staff members accountable, so that that management actually has to sign off on it. Creating incentives for not clicking on the link, right? Offer free coffee, do a free coffee day for everybody that didn't click on the link, or like a free lunch party. So frequency, how often should executives get training? How often should IT and OT staff get training? How often should all of the staff get training? And it's really, every organization is different, but like we said before, train often. And we really support, obviously, IT and OT staff knowing the latest and greatest and being constantly, in the mix of learning new skills to better, support the security of your organization. So offering even trainings, I'll go into some resources here that a lot of the ones that I have listed are through NIST, but there are also very good organizations that have cybersecurity training, such as SANS, but those can definitely cost you some extra money. So it really just depends on your organization and what you're looking for. How much does training cost? Well, time, obviously, staff, and money. Everything costs money. The range is very broad, and like I said, I'm going to go over just a couple of different NIST training modules that I've got links for you. But then there's also some really good training through outside organizations. A lot of free, if you just Google, cybersecurity awareness training, there's a plethora of different topics and different trainings that are available. And then, like I said, a lot of them are free. So that's good news. And this is definitely something also that NREL can help with, by the way. The relationship that we have with USAID and CARILEC have provided us the ability to help do some technical assistance and be able to help train your staff. So how do you measure the successes and failures? Can you take a measurement on how many emails reach the actual user? Did they go to junk mail? Did they go into your regular inbox? And how many employees actually clicked on the link? Being able to bring those metrics in and see if, setting a baseline, and then being able to see where and how much your organization has grown over time after implementing a training program. And did you reduce the amount of risk, and then obviously the resources. Once you've implemented a program, hopefully the amount of resources that you're going to need are going to reduce as a result of the program. So these are just some really good questions to ask while you're gathering data for each category of sensitive information. Who has access to it? How do we track who has access to sensitive information? High-level information on risk, threats, and vulnerabilities affecting the utility. Is there a process for revoking access to sensitive information when the employee no longer needs it, right? So say somebody gets promoted from, one side of the organization to another. Do you then, limit their access from one and then allow access in the other? And then if somebody's terminated, how quickly do you remove access to their to their credentials? So how sensitive is the information, and then being able to determine that and what level of risk that information is to the organization. And then what do staff need to know about security for each type of sensitive information and the system that it stores? Here is a list of those resources that I was talking about. And I do believe we are going to be sharing the slides after this, in case somebody, I just saw that somebody asked the question. So yes, so you'll be able to reach these different websites. Obviously, like I had mentioned, that NREL and the USAID partnership, we do, we are able to provide some assistance with this, but then there's also the list of NIST trainings that I have listed out here below. Those are the titles of them. If you just Google on those names, you'll be able to find those trainings very easily. And now I'm actually going to hand it over to my colleague, Maurice Martin.
Thank you, Tammy. Thank you for that overview of cybersecurity awareness training. Just to introduce myself, I am also an NREL employee, as Tammy is. We work together in the same center, and also have been working on this USAID NREL partnership. Next slide, please. So if this topic interests you, or others related to cybersecurity, the USAID NREL partnership is actively engaging with utilities in the Caribbean to promote cybersecurity, and we offer a number of types of engagements, kind of depending on what the utility needs. In talking to different utilities, we've gotten requests in basically 4 different areas: different types of presentations, new documents such as guides or kind of other printed tools, technical tools, either to help with assessments or determining return on investments and cybersecurity investments, also kind of tools analysis for things like OT, network security, then one-on-one technical assistance. And we're offering all of these to Caribbean utilities at no charge. These engagements would be funded by the partnership, so we're looking to find out, first of all, what it is you need in terms of assistance from us and engage with it. And some of the things we've been hearing, some of the utilities are interested in having us present either to their executives, the highest level of the organization, or to their boards of directors or advisory boards, what have you, as a way of helping improve cybersecurity governance and helping those who are leading the organization from the top to understand what the risks are, what programs will help with cybersecurity, and what activities need to be funded and at what level. We also are available to engage with the technical staff around particularly issues they might be seeing. One question we're getting a lot of is around renewable energy and how the migration towards more distributed renewable energy sources might impact cybersecurity. There is a lot to unpack there. There are implications for security as you undergo this major change to how the utility works. And we're available to meet with your staff and review security protocols, security architectures around this. And then engaging with non-technical staff. And that can be some of the things that Tammy talked about today, including awareness, helping with internal phishing exercises, whatever you need in terms of improving your cybersecurity hygiene, those good practices that form the first line of defense around the organization. And then we're also available to meet with regulators. I know that a lot of the countries that we've talked to so far do not yet have regulations, but are thinking about it. And that's a really good time to have a conversation between the government agencies and the regulator and the utilities. We feel that the best regulations are those that are made as a collaborative effort, so that all the considerations are heard, having everyone discuss the different possible approaches helps make the regulation fair and practical, keeps it from becoming more of a burden than it is a help. And we're available to participate in those conversations, even review some of the good work that USAID has published on regulatory frameworks and how to ensure that regulations are providing value to all parties concerned. And in terms of one-on-one technical assistance, we've had a lot of interest in that, everything from open source tools for cybersecurity. How do you leverage some of the good quality work that is out there in terms of free security tools for network monitoring, for aggregation of data, for situational awareness, topics like AMI security. When you add all these smart meters to your system, what does that do to security, and how can you take action to improve, make sure that you're maintaining security? IT/OT separation. What are the flip side of this? IT/OT convergence. What happens when you have more and more interaction between your two networks? How do you make sure that a threat on one side is not becoming a threat for the other? We're available to help with all of these areas and would love to have an initial conversation with you to find out what it is you're interested in and what challenges you're facing right now in cybersecurity. And just to throw one more thing into that pot, a lot of utilities that we talk to are struggling to get the right skill sets in-house to hire people who have cybersecurity training and are also knowledgeable about power systems. And we've got some approaches to help with that too. So please reach out to us. Next slide, please. And I'll show you the contact points. It can be either myself, and my email is there, as well as Tammy's email, and you can reach out to us to start that conversation. We can set up an initial meeting and find out what you're interested in, the challenges that you're facing. The webinar series, of which this is a part, is ongoing. As Tammy mentioned, the next one is going to be July, and that's going to cover incident response. And we've got some more on the way, including some good network security topics, regulatory compliance. That's actually, we're thinking that's going to be a panel discussion between regulators and utilities. So should be interesting, and to get the different perspectives that will come out of that. Risk management. We're somewhere in there. We're going to add a webinar on procurement, because especially with things like the SolarWinds attack and other concerns about supply chain, we feel like it's a timely topic, and we want to address it, and actually pulling in some additional expertise on that. So we'll have to add that to the list, and then more network security in the new year, as well as a conference that's going to be in March of 2020, an in-person conference. Hopefully we'll all be far enough along in our COVID recovery that we can meet in person and share some of these great ideas that we've been talking about virtually for a while now. So encourage you to participate in the other webinars in this series, and stay in touch, and let's set up a one-on-one conversation and talk about how the USAID NREL partnership might be able to help your organization. Next slide, please. And that is our presentation for today, and I'll turn it back over to Britton to moderate the Q&A.
Okay, thank you, Maurice. Thank you, Tammy. A lot of great content there. So now this is the portion where we open it up to all of our attendees to ask a question, make a comment. Feel free to unmute yourself, and you can raise your hand. You can put your question in the comments, the chat box, whatever is most comfortable for you. And I also put a link in the chat box for you to subscribe to our USAID NREL Partnership newsletter. And this is a great way to stay connected, not only to information about the cybersecurity webinar series, but also other webinars that we host, and to subscribe to our quarterly newsletter. There's a wealth of information that we provide. So we encourage you to sign up so that we can stay in touch with you. Question from Daniel. So Daniel asks, do your partnerships extend to state, local governments that support both investor and community-owned utilities?
Yes, it does. Right now we are assisting cybersecurity for the utility space in the Caribbean, but that's an all hands approach. So we hope to talk to state and local governments, the investor-owned utilities, community-owned utilities, anyone who has a stake in energy and security in the Caribbean.
Okay, we have another question. How can we know where the power theft happens? I believe is the question.
If I'm interpreting that question correctly, that's a reference to power theft, or I used to work with small co-ops in the United States through a different organization, and we used to call that bypassing the meter. In other words, getting your electricity literally around the points where it's metered, so that you're not charged for it. So in that sense, better situational awareness will help. There are algorithms that allow you to look at power readings at different points and kind of do that, sum all the somewhat you're seeing at a higher level versus what you're seeing at the lower level points of metering as a way of identifying where the gaps are. And those gaps indicate that power is flowing out to a load, but bypassing a meter. Obviously, when you introduce more sensors and more of these calculations, that increases the possibility that of tampering. And in fact, one way to execute power theft might be to simply spoof the meter readings that you're getting back. In other words, if I want to pay less for my electricity, essentially steal electricity, then I could hack my meter and send false meter data upstream to the collection points. The way to do that is to implement the way around that is to implement some sort of either integrity, cryptologically based integrity checks. In other words, including some kind of a hash or a MAC with a meter reading, or inserting some other data into the adjacent to the meter reading that would indicate whether it was real meter reading or a false meter reading. And then there are also ways of identifying that using kind of a broad-based anomaly detection. You know, if you see a certain pattern in the data, it might be indicative that the data is false. I hope that answers your question. If you want to unmute,
yes, sir.
maybe
Thank you so much, sir. Yeah.
Oh, sure.
Okay, sir.
All right. Thank you. I know that a lot of organizations are dealing with ransomware right now. Tammy touched on this a little bit, and we have certainly been scratching our heads here in the United States about the Colonial Pipeline hack. The press is reporting that the ransom was actually paid to the tune of $5 million, which certainly turns up the heat on that particular type of attack. I'm wondering if anyone out there has already been facing this kind of problem or has experience with it, and is comfortable sharing that. I know sometimes we don't like to discuss hacks where we've been the victim, but perhaps you've already done some security awareness training and found it effective in defending about that. So any ransomware information would be welcome, or if you have a story to tell.
Okay, it looks like we have another question. What approach or solutions have been shown in the power industry to protect AMI systems, smart meters from cybersecurity breaches?
There are some vendors who are already incorporating cryptographic means to verify AMI data. There are also some that are requiring, some kind of a key system to defend against unauthorized access to the meters. Those, in my experience, are not widely used. In other words, some utilities turn off those security means because they do make the system more complex to operate. And what we're trying to look at are very low cost, easy to use solutions that provide some of that cryptological protection, but also don't place an undue burden on the utility. It's finding that sweet spot between usability and protection that is really key. And that's something we're wrapping up a research project right now where we developed a cryptographic module for distributed energy resources. So it's not quite down to the level of AMI, but we're pushing in that direction.
Well, I'll go ahead and answer the question about the C2M2. So So the question is, what is the average time needed for NREL to help utilities conduct C2M2 assessment? So thanks, Jamila, for the question. So we have built a tool that one of the portions of the tool actually is the C2M2. So that's the governance portion of the assessment tool, but then we also have a technical management and a physical security assessment within the tool. And the tool itself is called the Distributed Energy Resource Cybersecurity Framework, or the DERCIF. And that can be found at nrel.dercf.gov. And the amount of time that it takes is really dependent on the size of the organization. But the C2M2 itself, it typically takes about a day, if not 2 days. And we typically recommend, especially for the C2M2 portion, the governance portion, we actually recommend doing 2 different assessments, one for the IT side of the utility and the other for the operational technology side of the utility, so the OT side. And then that way it's not for competitive reasons by any means. It's really so that you can identify the gaps in each part of the organization, and then you can start the conversation between the both sides of the organization to see how you can help each other. We found it to be very effective to do both sides, unless everybody wants to sit in together, depending on, like I said, depending on the size of the utility. So between a day to 2 days, but if you're going to do the full assessment with the technical management as well as the physical security, definitely 2 days, if not 3. But another thing that our tool does is it helps identify who needs to be answering the questions. A lot of times that's the struggle, right? Is to know who to invite to answer the questions to the assessment. So we hope that we've helped identify those people. And I will go ahead and put that link in the chat also for everyone. Thanks for the question.
Yeah, and generally it takes longer to set up the assessment for the reason that Tammy gave. It's often difficult to get all the right people into the room for the assessment, but once that's in place, the assessment itself is fairly quick. I see that Naveen said that his former organization did not pay the ransom. They had a strict non-negotiation policy, and their backup plan was watertight, and they were up and running within days. That's great news. Every time you do not pay a ransom, you remove some of the incentive for ransomware attackers to apply their trade. And you absolutely hit on it, is that how you do your backups and how those backups are stored and executed is key, because if that's in place, then the fact that someone has locked you out of your data can be very low impact. You're just restoring from your backup system, and you're back in operation in a short amount of time. So well done to Naveen and the former organization that did not pay the ransomware.
Okay, well, we would like to thank everyone for their time this morning. Thank you for joining us. And I will be sending a follow-up email with a link to view this presentation and the slides, so that you can access the links that we provided, and also just encourage you to sign up for our newsletter or reach out directly to Maurice or Tammy. I will provide those email addresses, so if you have specific questions or you would like to engage with them personally, we encourage you to do so. And thank you so much to all of our panelists and our speakers. I think there was a lot of great content that was covered today. So again, thank you everyone, and have a great rest of your day.